doom song now. Doom, 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 doom.
Welcome back to volcanopele Plays, and this week we're going to take a look at Farming Simulator 2016, which is the mobile port of Farming Simulator 2015 on the PC and Xbox One and PlayStation 4. It's a little different it's not the same game. It's not like Airport Simulator where it's essentially the same game you can get on the PC. This is definitely a mobile port, so it's definitely a little simplified. I actually kind of like to play it a little bit more on my iPad than on the Xbox One. A little bit because of the simplifications. So you don't have to run around to get to each of the vehicles. You can just, there's a quick button on the controller to quickly swap between vehicles, so that makes it a little bit easier. You don't have to worry about things like trying to line up to deliver goods, when you deliver the grain to from the harvester to the tipper. You don't have to deal with trying to get the pipe out. You just have to make sure to get it lined up, and it'll do it automatically, which I guess takes some of the challenge out of it, but this is kind of an interesting game to play late at night when I'm bored. But what I wanted to spend this video on was not so much talking about Farming Simulator 16. Instead, I wanted to talk a little bit about the state of the iPad as we get into 2016. And this week there have been a few news reports, both with rumors of what the next iPad Air, what the features for that next iPad Air will be like, as well as news on Apple's earnings call on Tuesday, where they announced how iPad had done in the previous quarter, during the holiday quarter late last year. Turns and this giant this big harvester. But yeah, so in terms of, I wanted to look at talk about the rumors first. So there were a few reports out, first from 9to5 Mac and another report by Digitimes that looked at what types of features the next iPad Air would have, ostensibly called the iPad Air 3. All the rumors seem to agree that there will be an announcement in March for the iPad Air 3. This kind of goes against what Apple has done in the last few years, where they've kind of put the iPad Air announcements in the fall, either with the iPhone announcement in September or in a separate event in October. They've kind of done this at least for the iPad 4, the iPad Air 1, and the iPad Air 2. But in this past fall, in 2015, at their September event, they announced, oh great, I forgot to turn off notifications. In 2015, when they announced the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus, they announced the iPad Pro, which is kind of their much larger iPad geared more towards the productivity market, people who want to do more work on their iPad than they may have thought possible with the smaller iPad Air model. But at the same time, they did not announce a new iPad Air. So we've had the iPad Air 2 now since October of 2014. And there's and that's the one I use. That's the one I'm gaming on right now. I haven't really made the jump to the iPad Pro, mostly because I don't like the larger screen. I like my iPads to be at least a little bit mobile. I like to bring it in the car with me when I'm a passenger, and just the iPad Pro just feels a little too big for that. It kind of feels like if you're going to get the iPad Pro, that is definitely not truly a mobile device. But a lot of people really have liked it. It has a lot of nice features to it. For example, the faster screen refresh and the Apple Pencil make it a lot easier to take handwritten notes and to do drawings on the iPad. Right now, you can get styluses for the other iPads, but they're just not going to be as accurate as the Pencil can be, because in terms of the Pencil, it is pixel perfect in terms of where it's hitting the screen, whereas other styluses more or less try to pretend they're your finger, and so your giant sausage fingers are not going to be as accurate as something like the Apple Pencil. And other manufacturers, whether it's Microsoft with their Surface Pro or Samsung with their Note, have taken note of the fact that having an accurate stylus is useful for certain situations. Maybe you're not going to want to use it all the time, but for situations where you're wanting to take handwritten notes, having an accurate stylus and having an accurate screen and fast screen is quite useful. Looks like I'm done taking some of the corn back. I also took a little bit of the canola and sold that for more money. So now I'm back up above 300,000. Hoping to get another field. I think that's the one I'm going to get next. So I'm going to get a fourth field, so I can maybe do like beets or something or potatoes. Anyway, so they didn't release an iPad Air in the fall, and I've been hoping. That's what I've been looking to get next, is the next iPad Air, and they will be doing another iPad. So there's hope that with this release in March, they will release an iPad Air 3 with not only the A9X chip or A9 chip, but also support for the Pencil. At least that's what I'm looking at. So there have been a couple reports this week about what that device will have. And the first from 9to5 Mac suggests that it will have the speaker setup that the iPad Pro has. In the iPad Air, there are stereo speakers on the bottom of the device, which is great for listening to music or watching a video if it's in portrait mode. The device is in portrait mode, but no one really wants to watch a YouTube video in portrait mode or a movie in portrait mode. You're going to want to generally use them in landscape mode, and having those stereo speakers just on one side isn't really going to help with anything. So with the iPad Pro, and hopefully with the iPad Air 3, according to this rumor, you'll have stereo speakers on both sides, on both ends of the device, so that if you're holding it in landscape, you're going to get that stereo sound. And in the iPad Pro, these are the speaker grills are supposed to be balanced so that they can produce very good sound. And for me, when I'm lying in bed and wanting to watch a video, say with my girlfriend, and we're trying to watch a video, it's nice to have those stereo speakers, as opposed to something, the very tiny sound that you can get out of just that one set of those pair of speakers that you have on one side of the device. So we end up using something like the Jambox to help to create much larger sound. So hopefully that will be something that's built in the device, having stereo sound and much louder stereo sound. As far as will it happen, I'm going to put it, if 1 is absolutely not going to happen and 10 absolutely guaranteed, I'd give this rumor a 6. It's more likely than not that you were going to see these sets of speakers, but I'm a little hesitant to believe it, mostly because of the cellular window that's at the top of the cellular iPads. So if you've ever seen a cellular iPad, there's kind of this plastic window at the top of the device to allow RF signals to get into the inside, because the rest of the back is aluminum, and the front is this glass panel. So it'll allow cellular signals to more easily get into the antenna on the inside the device. There is this plastic strip at the top. And with the iPad Pro, they took the size of because it's so much larger, the RF window doesn't almost fit the entire width of the device. So you're able to fit in those stereo speakers. Whereas with the iPad Air, there's not that much room for that as there is on the iPad Pro. So I could see that it's something that they want to do, particularly since they may be seeing the iPad Air line as more of a consumption device, and having those speakers makes it a much nicer consumption device than the iPad Air 2. But the issue with the RF window makes me a little bit more hesitant to believe that rumor is absolutely true. The other thing that they announced, that 9 to 5 Mac suggested, was that there would be flash for the camera on the back of the iPad. That one I can believe. It's something that is on the iPhones, but the iPad cameras have never had flash. And while yes, it looks silly to take photos with and video with the iPad, it still does, and it still will look silly even if it does have a flash. But at the same time, I still like using it. And I still like using the camera, particularly for things like scanning. And if it had a flash, it might make it easier to scan a document with the camera in low lighting conditions. So that might make it a lot nicer. And there are good situations to want to use the iPad camera. And it's a great big viewfinder. So I'm not going to make fun of somebody who uses an iPad in a lot of situations, but I still believe that I think this rumor is a good chance of being true. So in that same scale I talked about before, I'd give this rumor about an 8. I think I'm a little hesitant because it's not on the iPad Pro. There's no flash in the camera on the iPad Pro, but it's not something that is hard to fathom that they wouldn't put it on. It's not hard to fathom that they would put it on there. So the other set of rumors that came out this week was from Digitimes, and according to their source, they believe that the iPad Air 3 will have a 4K screen and 4 gigs of RAM and improved battery life. I can believe the 4 gigs of RAM. That's again something that the iPad Pro has, and I would love, obviously, more RAM is great. It would certainly make things like Safari much faster if it didn't have to reload everything, all the tabs every time. I could maybe believe improved battery life, but we're now several iPads into this product, and each and every time they come out with a new iPad, they aim for 10 hours of battery life, and I really find it hard to believe that they would suddenly change that metric. So I'm kind of hesitant on that one, on the improved battery life. The one that I think is complete nonsense is the 4K screen. It's such complete nonsense that I think that maybe whoever, either the source or the writer, misunderstood. And I think that what they actually meant was, instead of a 4K screen, that the camera can take 4K video. That is believable. That would make the iPad Air 3's camera pretty much on par with the iPhone camera, and that to me is something that's believable. But a 4K screen, uh, number one, that would be have a higher resolution than the iPad Pro, which is a larger product, which is a product they're aiming towards the professional market. And I don't understand why they would suddenly 6 months later release a product that's smaller and has a better screen, a higher resolution screen, and not to mention the fact that would, I just don't know how they would be able to hit 10 hours battery life in the device with something that has a 4K screen without dramatically changing other things about the screen tech, which I think would be almost as important in a rumor as the resolution of the screen. I think you're going to have something like an OLED screen if you want to have 4K on an iPad, because I just don't see how you would be able to fit so many pixels and being able to, not just the pixels, but being able to get light, get LED light out through those pixels, through that density of pixels without changing up the screen tech. So I don't really believe that one. Like I said, I'm almost of the opinion that they probably misheard, and what they meant to say was 4K video. Which, like I said, that seems pretty reasonable. That would put the camera on par with the iPhone 6s and the iPhone 6s Plus. Alright, so we're done putting the fertilizer on this field, which I just realized I put wheat in. So let's do this quest. But yeah, I meant to put corn in that field, not wheat, but I didn't really notice that the icon showed wheat, not corn. That was my mistake. So anyway, so there's these quests that you can take in this game. They're very, in the mobile part, they're very simple. This one is basically you go pick up a trailer full of wheat, all the way down here. You can see it in that green lit up area. And you gotta take that trailer over to the mill. Got to get on the other side of it. Oh, come on. See if I can line up a little bit better. There we go. So we got to take this trailer full of wheat all the way over to the mill, which is in this other little town. On the northwest corner of the map. But yeah, you do the missions, which basically all seem to be pick up this trailer, take it to this place to turn it in, and you get money. So it's a nice way to make some quick money, particularly early in the game. Later in the game, they really don't seem to be worth it. But I think right now, they're nice quick missions that you can complete. I really need to harvest the wheat and the canola that I have. And boom, there we go. We got, what is it, about a little bit, 18,000. It's not too bad. I mean, it's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it's more or less equivalent to how much you'd get with a single harvest from some of the fields that I have. I don't have very big fields right now, but yeah. So I think with the next video, I'm going to take a look at the Apple earnings report and how that relates to the iPad, and whether that means the iPad is doomed. Which it isn't, but if you look at the news, it seems to suggest that it is. But it does have some issues. And a lot of it is Apple's fault, and Apple's marketing, and Apple's App Store policies. So we'll take a look at that next time. So thanks for watching this video of Farming Simulator, and I will see you all later. Thanks for watching.